than the rest of us. He said, I can program without the go-to. And there he wrote before us algorithm after algorithm without the go-to. He invented also, I think he called it quit, but everybody else now knows it as the break statement in C. And from that day forth, we all started avoiding the go-to. It was just a wonderful thing to see this new insight came in one day.
Those of us who read the EWD series have noticed that there are various themes that recur and there are various plots that appear and then disappear. I confess I used to read the ones with the words first and then go back and read the ones with the mathematics. And amongst the ones with the words, which were usually philosophical, was a series about Mathematics, Inc., which was Edsger's way of poking fun at mathematics and theoretical computer science and the computer science industry. Well, many a jest is said in truth, and there is today a company that might be called Mathematics, Inc. It's called Akamai, and it's a company of a bunch of theoreticians who have gotten together and made a fortune on caching in the internet. The next speaker, although is listed as being at UT Austin, actually is currently on leave at Akamai. That would be Greg Plaxton, who is a theoretician. Greg?
Please excuse the prepared text. I'm not too good at these kinds of occasions. First and foremost, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Edsger for allowing me to attend his ATAC seminars. They opened my eyes and mind to some really interesting ideas and have had a lot of influence on both the style and content of my subsequent research. I'd also like to say a few words on the subject of retirement. Of course, I don't have any direct experience in this area, but my father, who is almost exactly the same age as Edsger, left the practice of law a couple of years ago, and so I've recently had the opportunity to observe his transition to retirement. Throughout his career, my dad was pretty focused on work and didn't have much time for outside activities. We used to say that his main sport was hopscotch, but without the hopping. So when he retired, my mother and sisters and I were more than a little concerned about what he would do with himself. As it happens, my dad has become engrossed in a sequence of projects of ever-increasing scale and ambition. For instance, this past fall and winter, he and two other guys from his woodworking class built a barn. I guess he enjoyed the physical exertion associated with barn building because his current project, which should be completed this very weekend, is a 5-week, 800-kilometer walk from the French Pyrenees to the westernmost point of Spain. And for the summer, my dad plans to outdo himself yet again by taking up an apprenticeship in a shipbuilding yard on the Great Lakes. By the way, Edsger, my dad says there might be an opening for you at the yard. Maybe something in the scraping and sanding division. Anyway, the point of all this rambling is that if there's one form of freedom that puts even academic freedom to shame, it's the sort of freedom that comes with retirement. So Edsger, I'd like to congratulate you on reaching this milestone, which I hope only marks the beginning of the most rewarding stage of your life. All the best. Thank you.
For some, being a researcher is about having impact. And the next speaker, Nicholas Werth, has had lots of impact. He's a language designer par excellence. But he's also the only computer scientist about whom I know there is a joke, and I will share it with you. Why is he called Klaus Werth had a home and Nicholas Wirth in the US? And the answer, of course, is in Europe they use call by name, and in the US it's call by value. Nicholas.
It was mentioned today that I'm one of the oldest acquaintances of Edsger, dating back to the 1962 IFIP Congress. For a while I believed it myself, but of course it needs to be pointed out that at those times our relationships have not been quite symmetric. And I was a graduate student at Berkeley and went to this Congress. And why did I want to see Edsger Dijkstra? Because I didn't know him, but I knew of him. I got involved in computers and in particular software and compiler design back in 1960. And that was a time when the Algol 60 report had come out and presented one shimmer of light at the horizon that some more order and scientific approach could enter that messy field of programming that was in practice. I still remember that compiler I was confronted with. It was a huge thing, no principles, just a lot of tricks, and there was only one single woman who had access to all these tricks, and for the others it remained mystery. So the only alternative was to do something new and bring method and scientific approach into this field, and that was of course an ideal subject for somebody who was looking for a thesis topic. Yes, and then 1961 I believe we received some news and some reports, grey A4 pamphlets from a certain Edsger W. Dijkstra describing his implementation, believed to be the first full implementation of Algol, and we read that with keen interest, and I must confess I learned a lot of technical stuff, and of course what I said, method and discipline, and that these are, as we all know by now, the hallmarks of Edsger Dijkstra. Well, this is the way I got into this Algol working group. 2.1, this famous or infamous working group, and I got to know Edsger more personally. So maybe, yeah, I should say something about commonalities first before I talk about differences, shouldn't I? Well, one common trait we have, he being a Dutch and I being a Swiss, we both dislike cheese. So that with one full sweep made him very sympathetic to me. But of course there were differences too. One that just came to my mind while I was listening to these talks, and it's very, very important. You learn that from Edsger. If there are differences, stick to your guns. I mean, don't just bow your head because it is a